Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar in what is obviously very interesting times. We face a bit of a global pandemic and a bit of chaos in the process, and we really want to get as much value through to you today as possible so that you can mitigate the risk for your business. For those of you that don't know me, my name is welby-cooke, and together with Peter Scholes, we run the South African franchise operation for ActionCOACH business coaching. But together with our team of over 50 coaches around the country and neighboring countries, we focus very heavily on driving the performance of entrepreneurs so that they can run more sustainable and successful businesses. And it's really those individuals that we're most concerned about. There's obviously been a little bit of carnage, let's call it that, in the global stock exchanges. We've seen fuel prices drop. We've had some major local crashes like Sasol and the like. But it's really the entrepreneur, the man on the street, the business owner, the person that's self-employed, that's taken the step of courage to grow their business and to take on this risk that we want to support as much as possible and give you, great steps that you can use really to impact your business and how to prepare for that. The nice thing is some businesses have had absolutely no challenges, absolutely no problems, absolutely no feedback whatsoever, and that's great. We'll keep it like that. So I think on that, we're going to start quickly just with a poll. I'm going to launch the poll for you. It's going to come up on your screen, and what you can do is just click whatever's relevant for you. Are you finding that there has already been an impact and you're struggling? Please let us know. If it's not an issue and it's not an event, say so, and just give us a sense of what your experience is like at the moment. I'm going to leave it up there for a while so that you can vote, and then we'll also show the results for everybody. One of the better posts I saw the other day was, I wonder if this was on anybody's SWOT analysis. And as we go through doing this, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in any business, did we really plan for this? And the reality is probably not. It is a little bit of a once-off situation. It is being driven by a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, and with uncertainty and fear obviously comes panic. And people find themselves running down the queues to grab food, to grab toilet paper, and they're not really sure why. And it is a psychological phenomenon that we feel left out, and therefore we have to hoard, we have to do what everybody else is doing. And that's definitely not the case. So thanks to those for voting. Let me just share up with you. You can see the results. And yeah, it's not clueless. There's only 8% of you that it hasn't affected whatsoever. The rest of you either feeling it, in some way or form, and a couple of you quite significantly. And obviously, the way we do business is changing forever. And I think that's the important part. It's not necessarily that we have to worry and throw the baby out with bathwater, but the way we do business is going to change forever. And I think that's important. But I thought I'd start off first and foremost just with our vision for our global company. Our business now operates in over 75 countries around the world. And I think this word abundance is now more important than ever. It's the scarcity that's driving a lot of our behavior. It's the scarcity that's causing us to do things that we wouldn't necessarily have done. And I think for us to understand that there is enough, the shops will be restocked, the markets will come right, the money's still around, it's just being hoarded potentially, is an important realization. And this process of re-educating business, re-educating what we thought we know, re-educating what our processes were, is the critical one. How are we going to do things differently in the process? But more importantly, if we've taken that and we've brought it back onto our local continent, Africa, the place we love and we operate from, and it's the communities that are potentially the most vulnerable at the moment, and obviously the economy that's going to be impacted. But for us to really change that, first of all, kind of address the issues that at bay, but also then create an environment of thriving, it is going to result in us first creating thriving businesses. The more businesses thrive, the more they grow, the more they procure, the more they employ, the more they share, the more they give. And it's through thriving businesses that economies are impacted, nothing else. We can't impact an economy. Governments are trying to do stimulus packages, but that all needs to go through businesses. So you listening here today, if you're running your own business or you're involved in your own business, or even if you're working for somebody else, it's our responsibility to really focus on what we've got and how can we grow and create that thriving atmosphere so that we can then, in doing so, impact the economy, which is so vitally needed, and that will transform communities as we go through the process. So the first thing, just as a general, I wanted to start off with before we get into the meat of it, is plan and don't panic. It's through the lack of plan that people are panicking, and that's what we want to create. So let's just look at some current realities that we face. There's a great video on YouTube. You can go to YouTube, type in "Stop It" by Bob Newhart, and it's really a short, humoristic video around the challenges we think we have and how do we just stop that. Breathe, smile, calm down to a mild panic if you're hectic, and just take a moment to reflect, because if you don't calm first, the fact versus fiction debate becomes very difficult. What is fact, what is fiction, what is real news, what is fake news? And obviously there's a lot of that going around. I've heard the most ridiculous comments around how people are reacting to this environment, and really get discerning for that. People that know me will always know that I say, have you responded to the headline of the advert or the news poll or the News 24 update on your phone, whatever that case may be, or have you actually read the article? If you're going to have any reaction to the news, make sure you read the whole article. In fact, come back tomorrow as the news is updated and restated, but get the facts, really get to understand the facts. And if we have a lot of the facts, we realize that whilst there is an issue, it is certain pockets that are worstly affected and stuff like that. But I think the most important is to understand that perception is reality. It might seem simple for you, it might seem simple for me. We might think very differently around a situation to somebody else, but their perception is their reality. And how are we mindful of that? Because if we're not, if we're just trying to ignore it, if we're just trying to move forward, willy-nilly or as if nothing's happened, we are going to face problems. I was reminded of that yesterday when somebody said to me, geez, so-and-so was not very impressed with your approach, and that you're not that concerned, that you're not seemingly panicking like they are. It is different for different people, and we must respect that. Don't neglect you and your family. And yes, I'm going to call on all of you to be better leaders, better, stronger leaders in your organizations, but don't neglect yourself and don't neglect your family through these trying times. And the best discussion I heard yesterday was on a local Western Cape radio station, Smile FM, and this term social distancing. It's physical distancing that we're really needing to do to contain the spread of the virus. The social interaction is still critical. And as these opportunities are becoming restricted, where we would normally interact, it's important that you interact with those around you, you have conversations, you find things to do together, and you don't just implode into a whole neurotic around your phone, because that's obviously happening more and more. People are just consuming information or trying to hide away from that information on their phone. And the social interaction part, the social needs don't go away just because we can't now interact the way we used to. So be mindful of that. And I thought I'd just add two resources there that are the official resources that you can tap into. And the one is the National Institute for Communicable Disease, where the real facts are being shared. What is government doing? What aren't they doing? How many people are being infected? Who are the people that are being infected? Where are the people that are infected? Because there's still a few provinces in the country that have 0 cases. The majority, over 90% of cases, are still through people that have traveled globally. So it's a great resource for the actual information of the facts. And if you do need the extra support on the medical side or things like that, there is the toll-free number that you can contact and get the real information you need. So make sure that you focus on that. So the first thing, and as we get into the meat of it, there's 11 steps that I want you to focus on. So take good notes. The first one is communication. You as the leader of the organization and a leader within your family or within your friendship circle or within your networks need to communicate more, not less. You mustn't be seen absence in this crisis. And somebody said to me today, oh, just over all this corona stuff. Yes, that is the reality. But if people don't know what's happening, they will create their own perceptions. So the first one is identify who's your team. Who are the people that are critical to you? Your family members, your staff members, people that you interact with on an ongoing basis. Communicate with them, let them know what's going on, let them understand what are you doing, what you're not doing, what's the process. We had a scare in our office earlier in the week where one of our staff members is also a Paralympian. He interacted with German Paralympians currently training here, and there might have been an issue. Great, stay at home, immediately take the safety precaution, because we want to look after our team, but we want to be able to communicate with those around us as much as possible. Also communicate with your customers. It doesn't have to be coronavirus specific, and we'll get to the marketing part later on, but communicate with your customers around what you're doing. Is it business as usual? Because the perception is it's not. What are you doing to make sure that we're still continuing? Is there a plan of action? All that kind of thing is important, because if people know what's happening, if they know what you're doing and they're getting information from you, that becomes their kind of safety blanket, their safety net. They're looking to you to update them, and they won't go looking externally and all the fear mongering that is happening at the moment. Also think of your networks. Who are the people that you interact with? Your suppliers, your service providers, your membership networks. How are we using those to communicate? Not just what we're doing, but what other people aligned to what it is that we're doing, what their plans are, what their focuses are. Because if we see that there's traction and there's progress, we kind of take it a little bit easier. And obviously those suppliers and stakeholders are critical. They're as involved in your process as possible. We want to know upfront any issues that a supplier might have that may impact my business, and therefore I can communicate with my customers. There might be things that the suppliers are doing that you could take advantage of, but you don't know in the process. You know, practical example, Facebook have announced $100 million support and assistance for entrepreneurs. They haven't quite gone into the detail of how they're doing it yet, probably in the form of a bit of advertising, discounts here and there, stuff like that. But register in the meantime your interest so that when they launch that, you get access to it. As the government starts to roll out more stimulus packages, you know, those are stakeholders that could provide very valuable information for you, and then understand that you don't operate in a vacuum. Whatever you're doing is impacting a lot of people around you. So who is your community? How do we bring the community together? How do we get people to interact with each other? And maybe we need to find new ways of doing business. Maybe we need to introduce them to different people so that if they have to change a business model, we can do that. So identify who your community is and be communicating with those people in a regular way, but also understanding that they are being bombarded. So find different ways to do it. Don't just send out boring emails. You might need to be more on the phone. You might be having to use WhatsApp groups. It will depend for your community, but make sure that you are communicating. I know for a lot of people, easier said than done, you know, be positive, but it really is our approach to this that's the most important. And half the battle is won in your mindset and your approach to the issue. So check your mindset. And if you're having to be strong for everybody else, if you're having to be positive for everybody else, find your opportunity to share your worries, to share your concerns. But when you're having to step up and be that leader, make sure that you are positive. You know, probably one of the biggest time wasters we have is fear and worry, and that leads to procrastination. And when we're procrastinating, we don't make decisions, and the more we don't make decisions, the more we panic. So these are the realities of things that happen. So please use this opportunity to just take it a little bit slower, reflect on what's happening. If there's concerns, you know, deal with the concerns so that we can address this in a good and in a controlled fashion. I think that's important. The other reality is that there's a lot to be potentially negative about. Other than the jokes that are going around that do give a little bit of a good belly chuckle every now and again, there is a lot of concern, fear, negativity. So find things to celebrate. What are we actually doing well? Where is there opportunity? Where have we got a new client? Where have we experienced something new? Where is a frustration turning into a bit of a a success, an excitement, a new lesson, a new learning. And don't keep it to yourself. It comes back to the previous point about communicating, because you start to be sharing good news. You start to be sharing positivity. You might have seen a different perspective on something that by sharing it and seeing it as a positive, somebody else goes, oh, wow, never thought of it that way. Never thought that I could even approach it that way. And, you know, a bit of a tongue in cheek, but how can I sell toilet paper? If that's what's happening at the moment, what is the toilet paper in my business? Because there is that opportunity. An aircon business today was sharing that, you know, nobody's at work, so not maintaining air conditioners, not putting in new air conditioners. However, there is the opportunity to do proper cleaning and cleansing of the air conditioners. Nobody's at the office, so it's easier to do. If it is going to create a bit of dust, you know, so be it. Checking the post box at our office complex, which I actually never check, but check today walking in after pitching something. There's a little flyer in the post box around, you know, office cleaning, cleansing, deep cleaning, all those kind of things. Nothing specific to the coronavirus, but they're finding the opportunity, and that's their toilet paper that they're creating for their own business. And obviously, with whatever's going on at the moment, we are bombarded. Now is the opportunity to pick a source of information, if at all, and use one source of information, whether it be the website I shared earlier on, whether it be News24, it doesn't matter where your source is, and stick to just that. Because it's easy to just consume information. And besides the paralysis that causes, it obviously, you know, really impacts our approach and our negativity and our mindset and things like that. So less is more in this case. You might have an hour a day that you're spending on it, or, you know, a specific morning ritual that you're going through, but don't just be obsessed with information in the process as you're going through it. And then because you are taking a more positive stance, you are being more proactive in the process. In doing so, you're leading your people. You're really setting the example. It's in these times of uncertainty that we need an example to follow. We really need that buy-in to say, geez, you know, I can follow this guy, I can follow this woman. They seem to have a better approach. And you don't have to be perfect, but at least be seen to be taking that leadership kind of role. The nice thing, and we've even seen the jokes around that, is we know that things happen in cycles. We almost came to an end of the world in Y2K in the year 2000, and we've had multiple scares, multiple viruses, multiple things that supposedly were going to kill us in the world, cause massive frustration, and we bounce back from them. We go through it. So understand that there are seasons for everything. We have had a long period of summer season. It doesn't feel like it, specifically in South Africa, looking at some of our issues, but we actually have. Things have been going pretty well. And, you know, the American term fall for autumn is probably a good one, because after a good summer does come that fall. We're going into it at the moment in South Africa, where we're going into autumn. Yes, there's elements of that are nice, but there's elements, it's looking a bit dreary, you know, that's not as green. People aren't feeling as good. The sun's going down earlier. It's change. It's not necessarily bad, but the period of autumn and fall prepares us for the winter. And the winter is a very necessary cycle to go through, because unless we go through that, we don't relook at how we operate. We don't relook at how we do things. And it's so easy to then get caught in a comfort zone. And it's just repeat. And therefore, the winter season is important, because it gives us the opportunity for newness, for rebirth, for recreation, which then brings around the summer again. And for those of you that have been in business for a long time, or have been around a long time, you know that these cycles happen. We had them in the 90s with the dot-com craze, the crash, the late 90s. We had it in 2008 with the global financial crisis. We have these cycles between 7 and 10 years. And if you haven't had one in 7 to 10 years, you should be worried when it's coming. You should be looking for it, because it's not a case of if it happens, it's a case of when it happens. So that's a critical one. The other thing that you can do whilst we're going through the points is jot down any notes you may have, but also any questions. So in the chat box, on the little control panel that came up for you, you are able to type in questions. I will take questions at the end. We'll also open it up for questions that you can talk through and ask live if necessary. So make sure we don't lose those questions and that we can deal with it. Because we understand the cycle, we then start to realize that change is inevitable and change is to be embraced. And if you think you're in a situation where change is not happening, it's probably happening and you haven't been paying attention. So here comes the opportunity for us to now start looking at that change again. And change is great when we're ahead of the curve, when we're ahead of it happening, when we're proactive in the process. Change is very uncomfortable when we're on the reactive side of that and things are happening and we're not in control. So that will involve some thinking. And I've been presenting a lot on this lately, is that probably the biggest kind of scarce resource in any business at the moment is the time to think. Now, depending on the generation you grew up in, we are wired to think that when I'm sitting and I'm just thinking, I'm not doing anything. Yet that's probably the most important area where we can spend our time is on thinking. And we can only get ahead of it if we're thinking, if we're proactive, if we're planning, if we're leading the change that needs to happen. We're not expecting other people to lead it, whether it be our competitors, whether it be our staff, whether it be our clients. No, we are leading the change. We are dictating what needs to happen, how it needs to happen, and bringing people on board with that process. We also have a formula for change, just going to run through it quickly for you. And most of the world is focused on the R, which is resistance. We try and deal with people's resistance to change. And yes, there's good medicine that helps with that. Yes, there's a lot of therapy that can maybe help with that. And I'm not knocking that, but it's more important that we focus on the left-hand side of that equation. And the first one is truly understanding the dissatisfaction. The D stands for dissatisfaction. If there's pain, if there's problem, if there's challenge, let's not ignore it. Let's understand it. Let's unpack it. Let's write it down. Let's get clarity on it. Because if we're not dissatisfied, we ain't going to move. We're not going to make the necessary changes that are required. The V is understanding the dissatisfaction from the D, but also the V stands for vision. What is possible? If we look ahead to the horizon, what does it look like? There may be stormy seas where we are, but further out it may be calmer. And if we can look towards the vision, then we can build something for it. So we need the dissatisfaction, the uncomfortableness, the real understanding that we need to move, otherwise it's just a comfort zone. But we need to move towards something, and that's the vision. And then we don't need clarity of every single little step of how to get there. We just need to understand the F, which is the first steps. What are the first steps that I need to take in helping me get beyond the dissatisfaction I am now towards the vision? Because as I take one step, it'll allow for the second and the third and the fourth. And when I look back, I would have seen that I've actually made a lot of progress. And it's in looking back that we sometimes see the progress. As we're moving forward, we don't often see it. And I remember when I did my first mid-mile and I swam the mile, standing on the dam, looking to the other side, it seemed like it wasn't that far. And the vision was there, going to the other side. And I swam and I swam and I swam and I swam, and I felt like I'd been swimming forever. And I looked forward and it didn't feel like I'd made any progress. It looked like I was still standing on the bank and I hadn't moved. But it was only when I turned around and looked where I'd come from that I realized how much progress I'd actually made. And that's required at the moment in these uncertain times, is you've probably made a lot of progress. You've probably come from worse things, more difficult things, lots of different things. So, okay, I am on track. I now need to focus again on the vision and the process that I'm working forwards. The other one is that saying, oh, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Yeah, throw that out at the moment. Everything needs to be reevaluated, whether it's our products, our services, what we price, how we price, our logistics, delivery, who's working for us, how they're working for us. We really have the opportunity to change everything. And the nice thing is, in times like this, you don't have the same struggles to bring about change or push it through or get people on board because they know it's coming. And it's much easier to just say, listen, because of the situation, this has changed, this is why it's changed, this is how it's changing, and people will just fit in. The change management process is much quicker, much easier, much swifter because people are expecting it in times of change. And there may even be things that you were thinking of doing or pushing through before the whole coronavirus issue. Brilliant. Easier to do it now than ever before. And dare I say, even the whole business. Maybe it's your whole business model. Maybe it's your whole business of what we're doing, and we're going to throw it out and revisit it. A client yesterday, speaking to them, and they're in the fresh fish business. Well, the opportunity is now maybe to go into frozen fish business. It's a whole different business, but maybe that's the opportunity. And how do we then kind of do that in the process? Break it, be comfortable with breaking it, kill the baby if you have to, because I know you've loved it in the past and it's worked for you in the past, but maybe the business now really needs to change. And that's the focus we need to have going forward. Before we go on to the next section, I am also going to just allow you to, sorry guys, let me just get the right focus here. You will see that there are some handouts. So if you open your control panel again, you should see 3 handouts that are available for you. They are an article unpacking these 11 steps so you can reference it again, you can share it, you can send it around to your suppliers, to your customers to give them some comfort. There's a bit of a tip sheet on how to handle crises and what to do at the moment, so you can reference that and go through that as well. And there's also a section on, what should you be doing to ensure that your virtual meetings are a success? Are there areas that you need to focus on so that you can have a more successful transition into this, and help yourself to those resources and pass them on to your teams as well. Cutting back is prudent. It's a good opportunity to review, because we're changing things, because we're reviewing what we've done in the past. Where can we cut back? Now, here I'm not necessarily meaning staff. We want to have that as the last resort. We do not need more unemployed people in the streets. So yes, that may be forced upon you depending on your business, but we want to do that as a last resort. There's lots of other opportunities where we can do that. So the first thing is to understand that cash is king. We want to be holding on to our cash as much as possible. So any unnecessary expenditure, any things that were nice to have, that we thought about doing, that would be nice, you cut back on those. We want to make sure that we're holding on to our money a lot more, so that we've got the option, we've got the freedom, we've got the security and the comfort of a bit of a stash or a nest egg. You want to stop spending money. Now, I didn't say stop investing money, because there's areas of your business you still need to invest in. You want to invest in guidance, you want to invest in systems, you want to invest in your staff, you want to invest in marketing, but stop spending money. So all those expenses that I am paying every month, how can I review them? Am I getting the best deal? Am I on the best pricing option? Could I go onto a different package? Should I maybe not be buying now, and should I maybe be renting? There's a lot of ways to work around that. And the good opportunity is to, every time you're paying out the expense, look at it and say, is this serving me? Is this taking me forward? Great, then I'll keep it. If not, how can we renegotiate? And obviously as well, where can we reduce outlays as far as possible? Because it is, let's say, forced upon us where we're at the moment, how can we renegotiate? And don't wait till everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. How can we renegotiate now? We ourselves have got events coming up that are under threat. We were the first to be talking to the venues. And don't just try and renegotiate on email. If you're sending emails out and trying to negotiate on that, the answer can quite easily come back as no. That's the terms and conditions, that's the policy, tough luck. Pick up the phone and engage with a human being, and often there is the opportunity to renegotiate. Your rent was maybe going to go up a guaranteed 10% on the anniversary of being there. Well, maybe we can negotiate that it doesn't go up at all, or that we have a payment holiday, or that we have a break, or that the increases will only kick in later on. There's a whole opportunity to renegotiate. What are our expenses from a telecoms perspective? Have we got the best deal? Have packages changed? Because what most of us do is we sign contracts for 24 months. We don't necessarily renew, so they're month to month, and there are cheaper options out there. So how do we renegotiate those things and look at them? And where possible, how do we slow things down or postpone? We don't have to cancel, we can postpone. We don't have to do them all in the next month. We can stagger them over 3, 4, 5 months if necessary, because that's going to help us conserve cash, and that will just give us the comfort that we need, the cash flow, the surplus position to try and weather the storm. And very important, we're going to talk about again, don't cut back on marketing and selling, because that's your future lifeline and your future business that you cut off today. And nobody knows how long this is going to take. And if it does come right, or not if, when it comes right, because it's only a question of time, you're going to be faced with a situation that then I'm starting, or then everybody's starting, then there's a lag before it turns into a lead or inquiry and a process, and then only money. We don't want to be in that situation. Marketing and selling is a 365-day-a-year experience, and this year 366 because of leap year. You don't get to go in and out of the market, because that's why your business does the yo-yo kind of cycle. So definitely keep that and see it as an investment. If you've ever tried to lend money from a bank, in particular, you show them a beautiful cash flow forecast, and if it shows that you don't need the money, then they give it to you. If you're desperate, you're on your knees, you are struggling, you haven't got money coming in, the chance of you getting money then is pretty much zero, because they're protecting their interests as well as the interest of their shareholders and their depositors. So where as much as possible, get money. Banks are still lending money. Nobody's really started panicking yet and said, oh, you know, your business is struggling, we're not going to give you money. So get it now. Think of those different opportunities where you can access funding. On the smaller loans, and you know, smaller is even a few $100,000, those things are scored. A computer does an analysis and says, based on your past experience, you're good for X amount of credit. That could be an overdraft, an increased overdraft, a credit card, a revolving or short-term loan. There's lots of different avenues, and take on that credit if it's being offered, or if it's not being offered, ask. That could be short-term and medium-term kind of credit lines. And you're doing this not to spend it, guys, not to just say, okay, well, you know, I've always wanted to redo the bathroom, so let me use the credit card or the increased overdraft. No, it's to create the buffer when you need it. So obviously it's going to require a little bit of kind of restraint. It's not a free-for-all, but don't neglect as well, and that's why I put it there, your personal situation as well. You know, if I'm going to be struggling in my business in the next couple of months, and I don't need to draw salary because I can live off credit in the meantime, maybe that's what I have to do. I'm not saying you must, but I at least want to have that option if things are required. If I'm needing to invest in something, or it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get access to stock or a good deal or whatever, I want to be able to have the funding to do that. So look at both your personal individual capacity as well as the business, and how can we extend there. Where you have to and where it's necessary, refinance items, extend the payment terms, lower the premiums that you're paying. All opportunities for you to extract cash in the system, and then make sure you're on the lowest rates. Don't go out and just take something because it was the easiest to get, but the interest rates are 4, 5, 6% more. Because know that when you're paying interest, it immediately eats into your margin, and therefore if it's eating into your margin, it's eating directly into your profit. So we want to still be getting the best deal. We want to still be ensuring that, yes, we might take the credit card at 19.5%, but our preference is to use our overdraft where we might be getting it at 14 or 15% if we have to. But we at least want the backup, and we want to negotiate on the rates. Often people will say to you, it's not negotiable. Nonsense. Everything is negotiable. And sometimes it's just negotiable not with the person you're speaking to, but one level up or two levels up, somebody behind the scenes, the supervisor, the manager, stuff like that. Here's the tricky one. I mentioned it just now when we're cutting back, and that comes to staff. We do not want more unemployed people. And as much as you're going through strains, frustrations, issues, we don't want to just pass that on to our clients, to our staff. We're the leaders. Leaders sometimes eat last. That's the way it needs to be in times of struggle. So we want to see where there's opportunities to mitigate the staffing issues. I know it's difficult because some businesses have just come back from a long leave over December, January, but where possible, take holidays. If it makes sense, if you can close the business, if you can do with less staff, if they can go and take leave, especially if excess leave is due to them, do it now. It's going to make it a lot easier and a lot simple in the process. And yeah, there may even be some staff that would be happy, depending on what their contracts are like. They might even be looking forward to unpaid leave or whatever the case may be. So have a look at how you can bring in leave days and vacations and things like that. It may be one at a time, or it may be all at once. You'd have to discern what's right for you. We do not, however, want to take knee-jerk reactions. So if it makes sense one at a time, great. Then you do it one at a time, or one strategy at the time, or one person at the time. Also understand that a few percentage points on a range of different things make a big difference. So a percent or 2 or 3 or 5 here and there doesn't seem like a lot of money, but over 20 categories or 20 staff or whatever, it can make a big impact. Because sometimes the reality is we need to make cuts in one area to protect 100% of the pie, and if we don't, we're going to put everything at risk. Pay cuts are an option. Now, nobody wants their salaries cut. Make no mistake, not you as the owner of the business, not any of the staff that are working for an organization. But there are some benefits in what we're facing at the moment. If people are working from home, they're not doing the commute. They're not doing the commute, they've got extra time, and they're saving money. They're saving money on petrol and fuel, on wear and tear. They're saving money on lunches. They're saving money on washing back home. So there can be the opportunity, if it's necessary, to say, right, we all need to tighten our belts here, and to protect us all, how do we do this? Obviously, you want to do this in a transparent and an equitable manner, so that everybody is in it together. We don't want to be isolating 1 or 2 people and they're taking the biggest chunk for the rest of us to kind of carry on. It may be necessary to change the way we have commissions, bonuses, things like that in place. And not that we're not ever going to pay them again. It might just be suspended for now. It may be postponed. It may be half now, half later. There's a variety of ways to do that, but it comes back to the first point: communicate. As long as we're communicating it, the reasons why, the intention, what's going to be the follow-up, we give ourselves permission to actually have a meaningful conversation thereon and remove as much as possible the emotion and the uncertainty. The work from home option is an option. The world has been talking about this for a long time. I always find it ironic that we talk about virtual and work from home environments, yet the biggest IT companies in the world, Google, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, still have these massive campuses where thousands and sometimes tens of thousands of people work. But it's now, in some cases, been forced upon us. So when we're working from home, there's obviously technology that's needed, both from a hardware, software, cloud, security, a range of different things. So make sure you're geared for that and you're prepping for that in the process. Just because somebody's working from home doesn't mean we don't need to meet, we don't need to interact. We don't still need information to be shared. We don't still need reports to be done. Probably even more so, because a lot of the informal interactions, the informal sharing of information will not be taking place over a cup of coffee, standing around, having a quick conversation. So we need to facilitate those meetings and reporting as well. We also need to make sure that if we're working from home, customer service is retained, which may mean you're now sharing cell phone numbers, albeit private cell phone numbers, of your staff with your customers, because they can't be reached at the office anymore. And we don't want our customer service to be dropped. Yes, there's the fear of people will abuse it, but we have to manage it in this process. We also need to understand that we can still do a lot of banking no matter where we are. A lot of the banks have already helped us to go virtual in the past, but are doing even more so now. You know, mail will be very different, posting, logistics, email. Yeah. How are we geared for that? How are we able to share documents virtually if somebody's working from home, but potentially also physically if we're now needing to travel across town with a file or with a box or with a brochure or whatever the case may be. And therefore, more communication is required if a team is not in the same physical space anymore and not less. It's not about abdicating and the problem goes away and sits at home. And there they've got kids and dogs barking and, you know, homeschooling and everything else carrying on. No, there's still a job to be done. And the technology needs to facilitate that in the process, because we don't know how long this is going to take. Could be weeks, could be months. It doesn't have an expiry date yet. And how are we dealing with it? You need to be thinking along the lines of security when you're at home, bandwidth and access to obviously the internet. We face the reality with more people working from home, with schools going virtual, with universities going virtual, with businesses doing more Zoom calls, GoToWebinar, Hangouts, FaceTime. You know, the reality is that bandwidth is under pressure. Can we negotiate a better deal? Have we got the right equipment at home? Have we got secure access through a VPN or a cloud-based storage system? And what are our risk protection mechanisms if we're now allowing multiple access points from people working from home and also multiple devices? You know, the children playing Fortnite on the same devices the mom or dad might be working in the day doing work for your company. We want to be protecting the business through this process. We have seen a lot of this in the past. We have seen a lot of it globally, and there's Amazon even announcing that they're going to be adding 100,000 new jobs because of the demand for e-commerce. The reality is we need to change. If you're not doing some form of delivery yet, best you start. If you're not doing enough of it yet, best you get creative around that. We need to make sure that we're able to go to our audience, because they ain't coming back to us in the same way that they used to. You know, can we do phone kind of delivery, online delivery? A service can be given over online or phone? How are we proactively contacting our customers and going out to them? There may be, as a result of that, staffing changes. Do we need to bring on temporary staff? Do we need to bring on casual staff? How are we dealing with this process if all of a sudden we're now going more online from a delivery mechanism and perspective? Like it or not, people are careful, people are scared, people are not going out as they used to. And therefore we must make sure that we're finding ways to go out to them because they're not coming to us. And even if you had a virtual element to your business, an online store or something like that, just because the people aren't walking in through the door anymore at your shop doesn't mean that they're automatically going to go shopping now online. You have to invite them. You have to help them across. You have to encourage them. You have to incentivize them. It's not just going to happen by itself. You need to be proactively pushing people, assisting and guiding them to go from your traditional platforms onto more an online focused scenario. And as a result of that, now we need different packaging. We may need accounts with logistics companies so we're not paying up front. We may need to be opening up new business relationships where we can piggyback on that infrastructure and don't have to do it all on our own. So it's not just a case of, oh yeah, let's open a shop, let's do online, let's start delivering things to our customers. There is the reality of the packaging, the proper packaging, the professionalism, the customer service, and the financial impact that it may come with. Courier companies are inundated at the moment. Now they're scaling up to grow, but we want to make sure that if we're starting anew with a partner, can they actually help and deliver in the current increase of demand for their services? And then again, communication again being important. Customers need to know what you're doing and how they can still do business with you, what they can expect. Can they expect a shift? Can they expect a phone call? Can they expect a different way of interacting? Can they expect, despite the fact that I phone the office and there's an answering machine because nobody's there, how are you going to get back to me and still deal with me as one of your valued customers throughout the process? Marketing and selling, marketing and selling, marketing and selling. It deserves its own point to be focused on. It's a 366-day-a-year exercise this year, and you can't kind of stop on that at the moment. So you have to keep marketing. You also need to understand that your conversion rates may have changed. Just because you used to get a 10% conversion rate on a certain marketing piece, you're probably going to lower your conversion rate unless you're in a high demand kind of space at the moment. If you're selling hand sanitizer, yeah, you probably don't even have to ask and people will buy. But if everybody else, the clutter out there is what you're going to have to fight through, because a lot of people are stopping marketing. So you're not fighting your competitor necessarily anymore. You're not fighting other marketing, but you're fighting jokes. You're fighting news. You're fighting fake news. You're fighting entertainment. You're fighting fear. So you're probably going to have to market more to get the same result. Not the same to get the same result, more to get the same result. So therefore, increase your marketing during this phase. Don't decrease it, because it is a process where it weans off slowly, even if you stop it today, and it takes a while to re-engineer it, regrow it once you restart. So you want to make sure that you are dealing with increased marketing focus and not decrease. And then, because the marketing avenues that you've been using are also in disarray, renegotiate the rates. We want to do more, therefore we want to pay less. Or currently there's a crisis, we can't afford to pay the same. How can we renegotiate the rates? Yes, we've got a contract in place, but this does call for special circumstances. And as I said earlier around the email system, don't try and negotiate on email. Pick up the phone, talk to people. Much more likely to come to a workable deal that's a win-win for both parties than trying to bomb emails backwards and forwards and just deal with those responses. Make sure that you're creating new offers, new rates, bundling products, incentivizing purchases, bulk deals in the system, so that you're not just doing business as normal. If you are finding a way around, like we spoke about earlier, creating your own toilet paper, there's something that works for you, it's maybe a different focus, good, then get it out there, market that, sell that, get the awareness for that, and make sure that your staff are equipped to deal with this new way of doing it. If you don't know our 5 ways, Action Coach's 5 ways, you can find a lot of great stuff on YouTube around that. Just type in Action Coach 5 ways, but it really focuses on 5 critical areas in your business. Understanding the amount of leads you create, that's marketing, interest in doing business with me, versus the conversion rate of those leads before I get to customers. So it's my leads times my conversion rate is the first 2. Then I get my customers. The third element is the number of transactions a customer will do with me. Will they do 1? Will they do more? How do I invite them to do more transactions with me? When they're doing more transactions with me, the 4th one is the average rand sale. How much are they spending on average in that moment? At the moment, everybody's average rand sale of toilet paper consumption has gone up significantly. They used to buy, I don't know, 1 pack a month. Now they're buying 10 for the day. The average rand has gone up. Those together lead to my turnover. And then the 5th area we focus on is margins. So understanding number of leads, my conversion rate, the number of transactions somebody does with me, the average rand sale, number 4, in the moment when they're purchasing from me, and then understanding my margins and how I work my margins to ensure that I've got profit. And where possible, get cash up front, even if it's a portion of it. We don't want to, in these times, be doing everything at risk and just creating more debtors problems later on. You want the cash up front, so as much as possible, ensure that you are doing that in the process. The 11th one is probably the most neglected area for many of us, and it's neglected in the sense that we are reactive with repeat business. An existing customer is gold. Much easier to get an existing customer to do business with you again than to get a new customer coming on board. But we can't rely on, oh, I work on word of mouth, I work on referrals. Brilliant, what do you do to get them? I hope and pray that somebody's going to refer me, because I actually just sit and wait. That's not proactive. We want to be going back to our existing customers because they are our best customers. We have to create something for them, reward their loyalty, incentivize them to come back. Just invite them to come back, encourage them to come back, let them understand how we're still there for them. And where possible, do bulk deals so that they're coming back not just for one item, but for many, or not just for R1, but for lots. You have to be engaging with that repeat business. And when they're coming back to you, a perfect opportunity to ask the proactive referral question and not, well, if they're thinking of you. Because here's the reality. At the moment with what's going on, nobody is thinking about referring somebody to you. They're worried about themselves more than ever. And if that was your #1 strategy to get repeat business or to get new business, hoping and praying somebody's going to refer somebody to you, that's gone forever. So you want to make sure that we're now actually asking that question. And obviously you want to keep those customers at all costs. You do not now want to be losing customers either to apathy, to the customers doing nothing, or even worse, for them shopping around and going elsewhere because they didn't realize that you would do delivery. They didn't realize that you would have an online version. They've always been doing business with you manually and face-to-face. They've come across somebody else that's doing it virtually, and now they've moved. Don't let that happen to your business. And surprise, surprise, there it is again. Talk to these customers. Don't neglect them. You know who they are, or should know who they are, and find creative and different ways of engaging with them to come back and do business with you in the process. 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, applies for most things. It's normally 20% of our customers that bring in 80% of our revenue. They need to be feeling really special at the moment so that they're coming back and engaging with us a lot more in the process. Now, interestingly enough, there's a step 12 in an 11-step process. And there's a very real reason for that, because you can't keep doing what you've always been doing. You have to change the way of operating and therefore over-deliver. Everything is about creating a little bit extra wow, a little bit of an extra unexpected, didn't expect this in the process, so that we are over-delivering on what we've done in the past. Ironically, yesterday, met a company, was doing business with them. The person I was interacting with had the hand sanitizer there to clean. It was too late because we'd already shaken hands, we'd already shared things. We both then did the proverbial to clean our hands with the hand sanitizer, and in greeting and leaving, we again shook hands and exchanged an item. Make sure that common sense prevails, and if you're going to do these things, do them properly, interact and train your staff in the process too. Be respectful of where other people are at, whether it be the foot tap for the handshake, the elbow handshake if you need, keep that distance. Have sanitizer available. If you can get it. That is the caveat, so that you are being seen as proactive. Give people comfort that there is superior hygiene happening at the moment. And then critically, for everybody, going back to the first slide around communicating, your team, your suppliers, your stakeholders, your network, your community, your customers, you and your family. Put people first. And then, you know, everybody, I think, needs to take a bit of a chill pill. Relax, breathe, be nice, be considerate, and we will get through this. We've got through it much worse than before. And if you actually read the stats, it isn't nearly as bad as people are making it out to be. But there is a psychological effect that's taking place. So, you know, be wary of that and mindful of that. And most importantly, don't buy too much toilet paper, because there aren't enough laxatives produced every day in the world to help you work through that. So remember that and take that through the process. Okay, so what do you need to do going forward? And we're going to open up now for questions, take a few questions before the hour is up. If you've got a coach, you've got an action coach, you're working with them, talk to them. Make sure that you're recreating with them your 90-day plan, your quarterly focus. Everything that we've thought about doing this year has changed, and make sure that you're proactively planning and executing on that. Had 11 steps plus one that I've just shared, you know, a lot of ideas within them. Now, before you go, list the 5 things, the ideas, areas that you're going to take action on. Not next week. You can go back to your notes next week and do things next week. Today, now, 11 steps you need to take now. Because if you don't, you will be found kind of napping, and then you will have much bigger problems. So we want to get ahead of that change, if you remember from earlier. So we're going to take some questions. In the meantime, let me see if I've got some that have been typed in. We can deal with some of those. You're welcome to go to our website. If you're not working with a coach and you want to, go to the website, find somebody in your area. If you need some extra guidance or you want us to point you in the right direction, there's my email address. You're welcome to email me. I am currently behind. It's been a crazy week, so I'm not going to get back to you necessarily in 5 minutes, but it is important that we will get back to you and assist you through the process. So let me see what we've got here. Thanks, Janine Groenewald, for your information. You're saying that virtual meetings can't work for you. You're installers and do physical work. Brilliant. And that's the reality. That's your business. So make sure that at least when you're doing that, people know that you're taking precaution. Let people understand that this is how we're going to work. You don't want people that are scared of you being on site now rather stopping the work. No, we are taking the precautions. This is how we're going to do it. We'll have hand sanitizer available, whatever, so people have that kind of comfort. Another comment here, we put a freeze on recruitment. Is this way to go to save our cash flow? Depends on your business. If the staff are vital, well, then of course you're still recruiting. If you don't need them at the moment and you can function without, yes, then you may delay it. You might also have a really good staff member that you were ready to appoint that was going to start on the 1st of April, for example. Well, if it's possible, you may delay their starting till the 1st of May or 1st of June. The nice thing about recruiting is just because we're recruiting doesn't mean we need to appoint somebody. We can still be in the market seeing who there is. If we don't find the right one, we don't employ them. And even if we do, we don't have to let them serve 30-day notice and start next month. We can appoint somebody now and they only start in 6 months' time or 3 months' time. Much more time for onboarding, for training, for getting them inducted ahead of that. Question 2 around, are you allowed to do a pay cut? Yes, you are. It needs to be negotiated and agreed upon. Obviously, certain industries you're bound by collective bargaining. That becomes a little bit more different. If it's an industry directive, there you're going to fight a little bit harder. But any pay is negotiated and agreed upon. If we need to change it, we have to change it, we can sit down and agree to it. Make sure that if you are changing things, there is the documentation to say that this was agreed, it was discussed, and this is the new process going forward. And, you know, like I said earlier, you want to do this with as many people as possible. Our staff are working from home. How will we know when to order them back to work? When the madness subsides, when the curve of infections decreases, when you or your staff are not feeling under threat anymore, Our businesses, some of our people have started to work from home, and virtually some actually are preferring still to come in, both staff and customers. You will also see that the government will keep updated as soon as we start relaxing the amount of people in public spaces, the new rule around 6 o'clock for alcohol at venues. As soon as those things relax, we know that we're heading in the right direction. So if you haven't reacted by then, then obviously you'll play it by ear for now. And it's about also understanding that some people may be coming back to work, some people not. That's okay. I don't have a problem with that if I was running a company, if half the staff are here and half not, because I'm respectful of where they're at and we're setting it up for success. We don't have to have a one-size-fits-all approach in the meantime. Question here from Charlene around, I have a beauty salon. Will people be interested in mobile beauty and hair services? Obviously, we still have to follow up the process of hygiene as always. Absolutely. People are still having birthdays. They're still wanting to look good. They're still wanting to feel good. Just because we can't do it in the way we used to doesn't mean that those things go away. We still want our nails to look good. We still need tutoring for our kids for maths or whatever. So look at those processes. And as long as I've got comfort as a consumer of your product or services, that you're taking precautions, I'm then not too phased about the process. The other reality we are seeing, guys, is that the panic is already subsiding. A lot of people were sleeping, taking it easy, not seeing it as an issue. When President Ramaphosa stood up on Sunday night, all of a sudden became real. Then we had a reaction. That's normal. That happens. Every time there's new infections coming out, people have a reaction. But we get used to change and uncertainty quite quickly, and it becomes the new certainty. And therefore, we're already seeing that people actually, let's roll up our sleeves, let's do what we need to do. We're finding a way around things. We're finding a way through things, over things. And that's resulting in the panic subsiding. As soon as the shelves are restocked, we're going, oh, I'm not running out of food and toilet paper. The media that fuels a lot of this is being more responsible. They're doing more live feedback from the White House, from Downing Street, from the president. And now it's more fact-based than journalist-based. It's more, this is what we're doing to prepare rather than sensationalism. And that's obviously adding in all of our favors. So, it will get a little bit worse, I'm sure, before it gets better, but it will get better and it will change significantly. And to leave you with this final thought as we wrap up on the hour, it's time for action. There's a reason our company is called Action Coach and not Tomorrow Coach, or not when I find the time coach, or when I can, or not so tired coach. It's about the actions we take. And hopefully you've got a lot of good value from this webinar to go take back into your business. Take the necessary action. You don't have to do it all in one step. You can do it in a staggered way, but go and focus and create your business to be a thriving entity again. Because as we said right up front, thriving entrepreneurs, impacting economies, transforming communities. It is up to me, it is up to you, and let's go do that together. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate your interaction today and your patience. We will be sharing this with everybody. The recording that did attend probably go out during the course of tomorrow. We will also be putting it in the newsletter with some other access for information for you. If you didn't get the handouts of this webinar, there will be handouts going out with the recording going forward. So as much as possible where we can help and interact with you, we're doing that. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Have a great evening and look after yourself and your family. Thank you very much.